And as for what could come next for Gaza, much of which is already in ruins, President Trump has proposed, quite controversially, that the United States take ownership of Gaza, turn it into a business venture, something he called a Riviera. He even posted an AI video showing what it might look like. Well, apparently the idea is not dead. The Washington Post reports that the Trump administration has reviewed a detailed plan to develop this Riviera economically under U.S. leadership and to move all of the 2 million Gazans currently residing there and to move them to an undisclosed location, compensating them with $5,000 and digital tokens for their land. The administration has not responded to our request for comment. Laura?
Richard, thank you.
Also, the American Lebanese guy that is supposed to be the envoy to the Middle East and the Trump administration recently gave an insane interview to Mario Nawal, one of these like TikTok guys, in which he literally said the Sykes-Picot agreements and nation-state boundaries are irrelevant, and that Israel has the capacity and the interest in overriding all of these pre-established states. Like, he basically said Israel has the ambition and the military power to implement the Greater Israel Project. It's pretty insane. Hold on, let me pull this up real quick. Lebanon at this stage is completely undermined, has no ambition for sovereignty whatsoever, with the decapitation strikes against Hezbollah. Seamus says, going off of Itai Epstein's reporting, breaking the Gaza Reconstruction, Acceleration, and Transformation Trust, G.R.E.A.T, exposed by Washington Post, is a twisted brainchild of Boston Consulting Group, which Benjamin Netanyahu used to work at. Remember, Boston Consulting Group is also responsible for the Gaza Holocaust Foundation, GHF, improperly billed as the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. But yeah, this is basically the Trump goal here, is to completely overtake. Like, the American goal here is to completely overtake Gaza, the Gaza Riviera Project, that kind of thing. Anyway, Seamus says, something I've noticed in the U.S. discussion about Gaza and Lebanon is the use of self-governance as a euphemism for becoming an American satellite state. Sovereignty can now be forced upon a country. If refused, annihilation will follow. Gaza is/was self-governing, but it is outside the American sphere of influence, so it is now deemed as an Iranian outpost that is interfering with Palestine's future independence, something that we all know the U.S. and Israel care deeply about ensuring. Of course they don't. So they're just like masquerading these sorts of actions under the auspices of self-governance and sovereignty, when it's not. It's just being an American, basically being an American outpost. New poll shows 58% of Lebanon is opposed to disarming Hezbollah without a plan to defend against Israel. 71% of Lebanon believes the Lebanese army is incapable of confronting Israeli aggression. Opposition to disarmament is overwhelming with Shias and lowest among Christians. Months and months to talk about what the Lebanese people supposedly want and think, and now we have finally numbers to it. But of course it doesn't matter, because that is the initiative that they're taking at the behest of Israel, because Israel gets to draw out all the maps in the region to suit whatever kind of purpose they have. And that is where we're at. So Lebanon is getting packed up. That's another part of their grand design. And here is the post-war Gaza plan involving the U.S. administration and population moves. And they talk about population transfer as though it's like a totally normal thing and not just wholesale ethnic cleansing, which is what it is. But when Trump presented it a couple months ago with that shitty AI video, people were so mad, fake mad. Western leaders said, this is unacceptable. This is ethnic cleansing. Months after, Israel is still continuing with its ethnic cleansing campaign, with its genocide. And now they're basically presenting it once again as the alternative, a much more peaceful alternative.
The Washington Post newspaper has published details from a prospective that purports to detail the Trump administration's plans for developing post-war Gaza. The proposal entails the so-called voluntary departure of residents from the coastal territory during
voluntary reconstruction. Remember, keyword is the voluntary departure of the residents. They obviously are not. There is no such thing. There is no voluntary departure here whatsoever. This goes along with another openly stated desire that Israel has in terms of building concentration camps in Rafah, where they basically pack millions of Palestinians into these concentration camps with the express purpose of shipping them elsewhere. One of the places that they floated to ship the Palestinians to was, I believe, Sudan. Another one is Libya. Just places where they will not get the necessary help and treatment. Places that are also unstable in and of itself. It's just genocide. It's genocide being packaged. Is genocide being packaged with, like, I guess, Western academic NGO speak? But obviously, no one believes this shit. Everyone understands exactly what's going on. It's just that we don't have a way to directly put a stop to it. How do so many people become for this? This is the other thing I wanted to mention. So it's not that people are for this. I think a lot of people are just like completely oblivious to the grand ambition here, or many people do recognize it, but they don't fully comprehend how violent these actions are. And even those who abhor what is going on, what's taking place, feel powerless in the face of the lack of interest from Western governments to do something to change the trajectory of this genocide and this ethnic cleansing. One thing that I read from Israeli society, however, because if you want to know like how a population is on board with this kind of thing, let me see if I can find it real quick, because there was this guy, he's a Jewish academic, who wrote like this long post about Israeli society and how they see like what the overall opinions are of the Jewish citizens of Israel broadly. And it's truly terrifying. I mean, it's just full fascism. Let me see if I can find it. Hold on. Former academic with PhD in Middle Eastern Studies, Ori Goldberg, wrote this long effort post about where Israel is, or where the Jewish society in Israel is, and their opinions on it. Because if you're wondering, like, I mean, there's protests happening. Like, is that moving the needle in some way? Is that going anywhere? Well, the answer is no. And the reason for why it's not going anywhere, I think he spells out fairly well. He writes, a primer on Jewish-Israeli public opinion. Number one, Israeli Jews separate the war, in air quotes, from the genocide. The war, they say, is being mismanaged and should be halted until the hostages come home. Number two, the genocide is all on the Palestinians. We wouldn't do it if we did not have to do it. They started it. They're animals. There's no other way. That's the way they see it. Number three, Israeli society will not revolt, not even against the war, in air quotes. The Israeli Jews have invested all the symbolic and actual capital they have in the genocide. Number four, Israeli Jews understand what the world thinks of them. They ascribe it to anti-Semitism, as old as the world itself, without relation to Israel's actions. They will not engage the world. Initially, some may take provocative action. Ultimately, they will cease traveling, circle the wagons, and convince themselves they are right because the world hates them and the world is beset by woke woes. Israelis will not accede to the existence of a present. Everything will happen. That is the true point of never again. It is only for us because the only real people are Jews, and the only real thing that can happen is an attempt to annihilate the Jews. Everything else is fake. They're hopped up on exceptionalism and supremacist values, supremacist ideals, and it's now extending beyond simply the analysis of like Palestinians not being human, but instead all the naysayers against Israel's actions are also critical against Israel's actions simply because they themselves are also anti-Semitic. Israelis will insist that Israel is a robust democracy exhibiting debate and difference in opinion. As the genocide continues, this debate will focus exclusively on intra-Israeli issues. After all, what does it matter what happens to the Palestinians or in the broader world? We are the only ones who truly exist. So this is one of the best assessments I've seen so far of like broader Israeli society and why they are so seemingly oblivious to the way that people see them in the rest of the world, and that is because they've just completely shut out all the naysayers. So when Benjamin Netanyahu says like, "Oh, France is Hamas, Macron is Hamas," yeah, for a lot of people. We hear that and we go, oh, come on, bro. You're so stupid. What the hell are you talking about? But for Israeli society, it sticks. They unironically do think that Macron is just like an anti-Semite. Anyone and everyone that's against Israel's actions must be deeply anti-Semitic. It's like slowly but surely, every aspect of Israeli society has molded into Kahanist sentiment, even sentiment that like liberal Zionists a couple years prior would have actually scoffed at and would look at and say that's too radical. They now fully are on board with this kind of principle. And that's where we're at.
Under this plan that is being floated, Palestinian landowners will be offered a digital token by the trust in exchange for the rights to redevelop their land. Now, that token would...
I can't believe a couple months ago when we actually covered how insane and stupid this was, it just seemed like a far-fetched idea. And now it's like... Now it's turning into this like crypto rug pull based government policy.
Either be used to set the landowner up for a life elsewhere, or the token could then be redeemed for an apartment within one of half a dozen AI-powered smart cities that the trust wants to build in the Gaza Strip. Each Palestinian who leaves will be given $5,000 cash as well as money to cover 4 years of rent payments and a year of food. But how that system would work isn't immediately clear. Now, it should be said that the White House and State Departments haven't commented on the proposals, and it's unknown if this is the plan that Trump is indeed.
Yeah, Hitler announced a temporary relocation of Jews, but like modernized, where it's like they're just doing hollow tokens. You know what I mean? It's crazy. It's just straight up like the modern dystopian version of the Holocaust. It's insane. What do you mean? What if they say no? They get killed, chatter. There is no saying no. What you literally are pointing a gun at them and going, here, take this fake crypto token. And if you don't fuck off, then, you know, you have the other option here. We will kill you.
Pondering, but we have heard numerous plans like this over the last few months to pay Palestinians to leave Gaza and resettle them in other places like Libya, as well as Ethiopia and Indonesia. Israel has been in talks with those countries, and the head of Israel's spy agency Mossad came to DC in July to seek US help to convince countries to take hundreds of thousands of Palestinians. Now, the Israeli government says that a relocation like this will be voluntary, but it is, of course, hugely controversial, and many analysts are labeling it as a war crime.
And of course, this is all coming as the Trump administration has cancelled the visas of all Palestinians just days before the UN General Assembly.
Yeah, this reporting coming from the New York Times this time. They are saying that US officials have increased restrictions on Palestinian passport holders, effectively suspending approvals of a whole host of US visas to the diaspora. Now, the new measures that we are being made aware of in this reporting were told to US embassies in a cable on August 18th, and they will effectively impact the ability for Palestinian passport holders to travel for medical treatment, as well as university studies and business trips as well. That adds to the restrictions already in place on visitor visas, and it comes just days after Marco Rubio announced that the US would not issue visas to Palestinian officials who are wanting to attend the UN General Assembly in New York in a few weeks' time. That also includes the leader of the Palestinian Authority, Mahmoud Abbas, along with around 80 others who were planning on traveling. State Department said that Marco Rubio was doing this to hold the Palestinian Authority, quote, accountable for not complying with their commitments and for undermining the prospects for peace. Now, it's unclear what prompted this newest push for restrictions from the US government, but it, of course, comes after a wave of close US allies announced plans to recognize Palestinian statehood at that meeting in New York in just a couple of weeks. France, Canada, and the UK all set to become the first G7 nations to do so.
Your country is evil, bro. The most evil and dumb. Like, it's just evil and stupid. It's stupid evil. It's cruel for the sake of cruelty alone and nothing else. Yeah, International Association of Genocide Scholars also got together and said Israel's action in Gaza meet the legal definition of genocide. I believe it was 85% of them that said unconditionally that this is genocide, which is the truth.
Associations say Israel is committing a genocide in Gaza. The group passed the resolution on Sunday, joining a chorus of countries, experts and rights groups who say Israel's actions meet the United Nations definition of genocide. Israel's leaders have denied prior allegations of genocide. More than 63,000 people have been killed in Gaza, and famine is now gripping parts of the enclave due to a partial Israeli blockade.
I ICJ dropped the ball so hard by giving Israel the time to complete its genocide. They didn't drop the ball. They're being significantly undermined by America. If you notice, the ICC has also, quote unquote, dropped the ball. They haven't. They're powerless if America says so. And that is what we are seeing. I mean, one of the judges at the overseeing the ICJ court case literally came out and said, God has chosen me to oversee this case because, you know, the second coming of Jesus Christ is going to happen. She straight up came out and said, I'm an evangelical Christian Zionist on a mission by God. Yeah, the ICC and ICJ literally take many, many years for genocide traditionally. I know. That's the that is the ICJ judge. The ICC prosecutors have been sanctioned into oblivion by the American state as well, though. Anyway, Graham Plattner is speaking live at the Bernie rally. Let's tune into it and let's see what he has to say. Oh, here. One note that I wanted to talk about, actually, is the notion that Kamala Harris would never do this. Like, people always bring this up whenever Trump says, you know, the same stupid Trump that he says all the time. They'll be like, well, Harris wouldn't ever do this. And it's like, she's not dead. She's alive. She could speak on these issues. You know, she has a voice. So Dylan responds with, the contention that Harris would have done something different with respect to the genocide implies she would have used the leverage of the U.S. to restrain Israel, the very thing activists demanded of her, and what she categorically refused to agree on. It's nonsense. It's Gaylor for Blue MAGA. Harris is alive, has a platform, and has leveled dozens of public criticisms of Trump. Exactly 0 have been about Gaza. Actually, that's not true. She has talked about Gaza. She's just communicated to Zionist donors that her position is actually different than her daughter-in-law, who was like a Zoran booster. So she has. And then the one time where she released a tweet about the New Jersey resident that went and fought for the Nazi army of Israel, who was, of course, taken captive as a prisoner of war and then was released by the Trump administration. So she has spoken out. It's just not in the direction of the Palestinians. So the notion that she would do anything different than Trump, there's no evidence for it. She has chosen not to give. Did I say something wrong? Yeah, her stepdaughter, Ella Emhoff, Doug Emhoff's daughter. Exactly 0 have been about Gaza. If she would have done anything substantively different 8 months on, she would have said so. She very conspicuously has not. Yeah. Why is she not speaking out? And what's really interesting about this stuff is that these people are fantasizing about a position that Kamala Harris herself has chosen not to take. Oh, here. The only thing Kamala has said or done even tangentially related to Gaza since the election has been privately telling big donors that her stepdaughter supporter Zoran shouldn't be misconstrued as own. And also the other thing that I mentioned as well, which is the statement that she released about the New Jersey resident that went and fought for the Israeli Nazi army on his own volition, who was taken as prisoner of war by the Palestinian resistance and then was released. We went through a year and a half of the Biden-Harris admin enabling everything, refusing to exercise any leverage while lying to their own base about it, like the fake humanitarian review they scheduled for right after the election during the general's plan, then greenlit. If she has a materially different position than Jared Kushner, nothing is stopping her from articulating it. If she thinks what's being done is wrong, nothing is stopping her from offering a real position. How am I supposed to think she believes in Palestinian self-determination if she couldn't even let one person speak at the DNC? From in twin events for Michigan Jewish voters, Doug Emhoff and Richie Torres stressed Kamala Harris's pro-Israel bona fides, October 21st, 2024. Kamala campaigning as pro-Israel does not mean that she would support a U.S. post-war Gaza plan calls for temporary relocation of residents. This, of course, is shifting the goalposts as the quote tweet was addressing the proposed relocation of Gaza and the construction of a luxury resort, which Harris would have never supported. There was no daylight between Harris and Biden, meaning no resistance to BB beyond empty rhetoric. Regardless of whatever loony plans Trump throws out, we'd be in the same place right now. And it's true. And I think people that don't want to see it as the truth have this like false notion that on this issue, there is some kind of daylight between the Democrats and the Republicans, when the Democrats basically bludgeon them over the heads that there is no daylight, right? Oh, so Kamala Harris wouldn't literally build a Harris hotel in Gaza? Okay. But Kamala Harris would still allow the genocide to continue, at least by her own admission, by what she chose to omit and what she chose to speak out on. What difference does it make if there is a Harris hotel in the aftermath once all of the Palestinians have been forcibly removed from their ancestral lands? It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense at all. It's like, oh, okay, there would be aesthetic differences. Great. The greatest sin in the eyes of the Democrats' interest is telling them they don't have the moral high ground over Republicans. That tells you how performative it all is. Oh, for sure. For sure. And in this situation, they can't even maintain a moral high ground. So they just fantasize about a moral high ground that doesn't exist, because the Democrats have openly only communicated support for Trump's plans in Gaza. That's what's so interesting about this. The very same Democrats that worked in the State Department then chose to work in private PR firms that now work for the State Department. The Trump State Department. It's so stupid. Now, are there differences in opinion and differences in governance between the Democrats and the Republicans on other issues? Certainly. This is just the truth. I communicate it with regular frequency, but overall, when it comes to Gaza, when it comes to the genocide, they're absolutely two sides of the same coin. It's shocking that people still try to relitigate this when Kamala Harris herself has chosen not to. She's actively avoided speaking out on this issue at all.
So thank you for being in this fight with me. I am forever grateful. And I cannot wait for you to read this. And I'll see you out there. Take care.